This is the Willis Twin Tower Show, right here on the Ballroom Network. We're here to rock and bring you the dirt. Tim and Jeff debating on the screen with the Podfather Aldo behind the scenes. They say the Irish bring luck. All we know is the Packers suck. It's Friday night. Are you ready for the show? Talking about the Bears, Irish, and music. This thing's about to blow. You've been waiting for this night all week. It's time for the Twins to speak. So sit down in that chair. Let's give it up for the Bears.
Feels like game day, doesn't it?
Teams are all gritty. All hail the Windy City. The Twins aren't playing. It's time to go Super Saiyan. It's Friday night. Are you ready for the show? Talking about the Bears, Irish, and music. This thing's about to blow.
What's up, Bears fans? Welcome back to another edition of the Willis Twin Towers podcast. 4 in a row, guys. We're on a roll right now. Big game coming up against Baltimore this week. We want you guys' thoughts about it. We'll give you guys ours. Quick reminder, as always, to please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're not already. Tons of great content here on the Barroom just about every day of the week, guys. So, like I said, follow us here on the Barroom at Barroom Network on YouTube. You can also find us all on X or Twitter. My handle on X is @_Jeff Willis. My partner here is @TimWillis24, and our executive producer Aldo Gandia is @Barroom Network. So, like I said, guys, we're on a roll right now. The Bears are playing good football. You can make the argument that there's some things that obviously need to be cleaned up. Well, we clearly are not. How do I word this? Playing their absolute best, I guess you should say. Not to the level that we would like to see quite yet, but they're playing good ball, especially on the defensive side. They're doing some really good things. We got like 16 turnovers this season so far, which is just absolutely it's just insane to me right now. The role they're on with the takeaways on defense. So, Tim, you got any initial thoughts about what's going on lately before we kind of dig into what's going on in Baltimore? Because, like I said, this takeaway thing to me is like I don't think I've ever seen anything like this. Even in some of the great days of Bears defenses that we've seen in like the Urlacher Briggs era, even back in the 80s when they won Super Bowl in 85. I mean, look at this stat that Aldo has on the graphic here: 11 interceptions and 5 fumble recoveries. So yeah, the 16 total takeaways. This is just, I mean, the defense is hunting for the ball. And you know what's really, before you take your turn here, Tim, something I want to mention I think is kind of important. During the Eberflus era, he used to preach all the time about takeaways and punching at the ball and the loafing and going after everything all the time, playing hard. And just, it never seemed to me they really created as many turnovers as you would expect them to create with that kind of mentality and with that kind of mindset. Well, now you come in with Dennis Allen, and you don't even necessarily hear him talking about it all the time, But, when we ask him about it in the press conferences, he does mention, yeah, we preach it in practice. It's something that we're obviously looking to do, but they're actually doing it in games right now under this regime. So I think that's a big deal to see. It's a common case of saying one thing and doing another. You know what I mean? Being about what you're preaching is something that this staff seems to be accomplishing right now. So what are your initial thoughts on that, Tim? And then we'll kind of dig into the Baltimore game that's coming up.
Well, first, hats off to Aldo for being the man. I mean, this guy, with the clips that he's making, the graphics that he's making, it's so appreciated on this network. And I hope you guys in the chat and the ones that follow some of our other shows as well, I hope you guys can give Aldo a thanks. I mean, it's just the stuff he's doing is next level. We appreciate it. We wouldn't be here without Aldo, so we truly appreciate everything that you do. But I'll go ahead and say, yes, the takeaways have been like a breath. I don't know if it's something we've never seen before because, the 2018 team, the Bears defenses from the middle 2000s were very impressive, especially with the takeaways. That was kind of their bread and butter. But what I'm seeing from this team, and you mentioned it with, how it was preached so much before with Eberflus, the difference is he had to say it all the time. He felt like he needed to say it. Dennis Allen is not one of those people. He's not one that's got to preach it into existence by speaking it. It's just there. He's coaching it that way. He doesn't need to talk about it. It's evident on the field that these guys are following him as a leader. And Dennis Allen is no slouch of a coach, guys. Dennis Allen has been a head coach twice. He's earned the opportunity and the right to be a head coach because he is a fantastic leader of men and defensive coordinator. He's just a great coach. And that's one of the reasons I firmly believe that was the biggest reason that Ben Johnson wanted to go get Dennis Allen over anybody else as a defensive coordinator. He had this guy on his radar during the season last year before he even knew he was going to take head coaching interviews. He saw that Dennis Allen was fired from New Orleans, and that was the first thing he thought of was, I want that guy on my staff. That's who I want. And I think Dennis Allen's value on this team has been very, very underrated. Even though we've talked about him a lot, and it was one of the hires, it was honestly my favorite hire in the offseason. I thought the Dennis Allen hiring was a fantastic move for defensive coordinator. But I think he's even been underrated in that regard. He has been so good as a defensive coordinator. Now, granted, the first two games weren't pretty, especially the Detroit game. But, guys, that was a brand new defense, brand new scheme. This is not the same scheme that they had with Matt Eberflus. Yes, it's a similar scheme considering it's also a 4-3. But the way that he implements his defense is totally different than what we saw with Matt Eberflus. Totally different. And he's much more exotic. He's much harder he makes things much harder for offenses to read his defense. He is very, very, very good at making things look different and making them confusing for an offense. But another part of this whole thing, I shouldn't say it's no surprise. It's not the fact that they've won 4 games in a row. It's not one of those things where it's like, how in the world did they win 4 games like that? I don't feel that way right now. And it's because in the past, when we struggled in one area of the field or multiple areas of the field, we got offense, defense, kicking. And of those 3, typically in the past, if the Bears struggled in one of those areas, they still lost a lot of the time. And if they lost 2, or if they were not very good on 2 out of the 3, you could chalk it up that they were losing that game. This team, when they're struggling in any area of the game, they're finding ways to win football games. And guys, I have been coaching sports for a very long time. And I can tell you, without a shadow of a doubt in my mind, the fact that they are able to do this is 100% coaching, because these players are believing in their coach. They're bought in. And I can tell you that more often than not, it's not always about technique. It's not always about being on your P's and Q's. It's not always about being phenomenal athletes. A lot of the time, it's just being bought in and believing in what you're doing. I'm telling you, that is a huge factor here that we did not have with Matt Eberflus. I think they had it early on in Matt Nagy, not to the same degree that we're seeing with Ben Johnson, but I think the players were bought in early with Matt Nagy. But this is something that I don't ever see it changing with Ben Johnson at the helm, because he is such a leader of men. His defensive coordinator is such a leader of men. His special teams coordinator is a leader of men. These guys just know how to lead. And a lot of times that is the determining factor in how you perform. More often than not, that is what takes you to the next level. Give you guys an example. And I don't mean to sound disrespectful when I say this, and Jeff will know what I'm talking about. I had a very good high school wrestling coach. Very good. Very, very technical, very fundamental. He was on it. The problem when I was in school, and sometimes even further on, but he got better with this as he continued to coach later in life. But I just never felt like he could get wrestlers to the next level. And a lot of that was because of personality. He was not a rude or disrespectful guy or anything, but he was very fire and brimstone, very on you to do things the right way. He didn't sugarcoat things. He didn't treat anybody differently. Everybody was treated the same. You're on my team. This is what you're going to do. But the problem was kids didn't buy into the philosophy, in my opinion, because he wasn't very down to earth with his wrestlers. He led differently than what kids needed at that time, in my opinion. And this is what we're seeing with Ben Johnson is he is leading these guys by example, number one. And number two, he is doing an excellent job of getting on their level. He gets to on the players' level. And a lot of that, I think, is because of his age. He is, a younger coach who is not that far removed from his playing days. There's players in the NFL probably older than Ben Johnson. I'm almost positive there because he's 34 years old.
I think he's older than that, dude.
I think he is. I think he's 38 maybe. Regardless, 36, 37, 38. There's probably some players in the NFL still older than him. I'm sure there's some kickers older than him playing in the league right now. But he's able to relate to the players. And because he's able to relate, and because he is such a good leader, and because when he says this is the standard, he holds players to that standard. And that speaks volumes with players. This team, we've talked about it several times. This team last year was begging for this type of coaching, begging for it. And it's no surprise to me that now that they bought into this and this coach is doing the things that they asked for, they're starting to see the success on the field. You can see these guys are playing their butts off. They're rallying to the football on defense. They're playing hard on offense. These guys aren't making lazy mistakes. If they're making a mistake, it's typically a mental thing. It's not from being lazy. You don't see guys quitting on plays. You don't see guys taking plays off. That is 100% coaching. It is. There's no other way to put it. This team, Ryan Poles did a phenomenal job of assembling a roster of talented players that a coach can coach, giving his coach an opportunity to win games by assembling a roster that is capable of winning. All they needed was the final finishing piece, and it's Ben Johnson, and it's Dennis Allen, and it's Richard Hightower, and it's Al Harris, and it's on and on and on. All of these coaches on this staff, they are all bought in, and it's the coaching staff. I'm excited to see it. Is this the Super Bowl year? Probably not, but I could see a Super Bowl in the Bears' future because they're playing a good brand of football right now, and they are bought into their head coach. That's the biggest thing to me. You want that the biggest reason this team has won 4 games in a row, and they're doing so in these tightly contested games where they're finding ways to win instead of finding ways to lose. It is coaching. It's being bought into your coach 100%. That is how you build a culture the correct way. So that's just my opinion, Jeff. I don't know if you saw things differently than that, but I would venture to say that you would agree that coaching is a huge factor in this.
Yeah, I think it's clear that, we've been talking about this for, since they brought everybody on in the first place. We've as a fan base, speculated that this is the kind of thing we were going to see, this kind of steady presence, especially from Dennis Allen, being a guy who's been a head coach before and has done this kind of thing in the past and obviously has a track record of elite level defenses. So this is the kind of thing it's not super surprising, obviously. And I would tend to agree with the, this is, I think it was King that said in the chat that the entire coaching staff has been a godsend. That's pretty much exactly what most fans, I think, would agree and say, because like I said, we've seen what bad coaching looks like in the past. And Ben Johnson actually said in a presser, I think it was before the season even started at one point, something along the lines of, I've seen more bad football played than I have good football played. And I think as Bears fans, that like really rang with us all. Like, man, you want to talk about something that's something that we've seen in the past for as a fan base. It's exactly what we're used to. It's a lot of bad football, not a whole lot of good football. So, but anyways, you guys are asking a lot of really good questions in here. You're talking a lot about the game that's coming up in Baltimore. So let's go ahead and switch gears here and get into that a bit. There's a question from Aldo in here about whether or not Lamar Jackson was going to play. And I see a lot of you guys talking about it in the chat. J2K made a good point about the Ravens bringing up Snoop Huntley from the practice squad. I want to talk about that real quick because I want to hear your thoughts too, Tim. But if I had to guess, and here's your comment right here, J2K, about bringing up the quarterback from the practice squad, as you questioned about how good to go Lamar really is. And like I was just about to say, if I had to guess, I don't think I don't think he's going to play. I mean, at this point, he's already missed the last several games now. You bring up a guy from a practice squad. I tend to agree with you, J2K. It's not a great sign of his health. The one thing I would mention is that there's been a lot of talk that Huntley was going to be their backup anyways, that if he was going to be if Lamar wasn't going to play, he would be he'd be the starter. And if he was going to play, he'd be the backup. So I tend to feel like I still think he's not going to play, and Huntley will probably start. It hasn't looked good with who they've had in there. I can't remember the guy's name now for the life of me.
Cooper Rush, I believe.
Thank you, Cooper. It has been Cooper Rush, and it has not been good with him. They won't throw the ball with the guy at all. I mean, they're like basically refusing to throw the football with Cooper Rush. So if that's going to be the case, you might as well just, put Huntley in there, and then you have a better run option, a guy who's more like Lamar Jackson. So that's kind of what I would think is going to happen at this point, especially I think they've got like 2 games in 5 days, if I'm not mistaken, because I think they play on Thursday night, right? I could be wrong about that, or maybe they just played recently. Maybe that's what it was I'm thinking of. But they play a couple games in a short period of time, so I would be surprised, honestly, if Lamar played. I don't think he's going to. Like I said, the practice squad guy being brought up in Huntley, that leads me to think he's probably going to start, because as I mentioned before, there have been some reports and speculation out there that he's going to be the guy that would be the backup anyways, and probably should start the next game with the way they're using Rush. So Vizo says if Lamar does play and he's not 100%, you could see him possibly get re-injured. That's kind of why I think they won't play him in this game. So I'm with you, Vizo. I think that if they played him in this game, you're kind of looking at a re-injury risk. And the season at this point is not totally dead. Even at 1-5, even if you start 1-6, it doesn't look good for you. But if you get your quarterback back and you kind of get on a little bit of a roll, I mean, maybe they can finish, 9-7 possibly. I mean, they'd really have to go on a run. I mean, if they go 7-9, or I'm sorry, 8-9 though, even. I mean, you could possibly make something happen. What did I say? 9-7, I'm at 9-8. If they could maybe finish 9-8. They could maybe make something happen there. So I wouldn't be shocked if they held him out with the thought of either maybe we go on a run late in the season, keep him healthy for late in the season, or maybe the season's kind of dead anyways. Just let it, why risk putting him in there? So I just, that's my thought. I don't think they'll play him. What do you think, Tim?
I don't think he'll play either, but I also think part of that is Lamar Jackson needs his legs in order to be as effective as he should be. That sounds like Uncle Billy yelling out there.
He's dumb. He knows what I'm doing.
But to me, if I don't see him playing, because if he even if he's close to 100%, if he's not 100%, he needs his legs. And if he can't use his legs, he's not going to be even close to as effective. Lamar Jackson has success throwing the football because he is such a danger with his legs. And when the Bears aren't concerned about him running with the football, they can key in on the passing game. Lamar Jackson has improved a lot in the NFL throwing the football, but he's still not an elite passing quarterback in this league. He's not. He's just not. That's part of it. That's the way it is. That's his game. And that's okay, because he is so dynamic with his legs that he can beat you in a multitude of ways. That's what makes him effective as a passer, because you can't just key in on him throwing the football. You got to be ready for him to break contain. So to me, if he's not 100%, why would you risk putting him out there and taking away his biggest strength? I just don't see that happening. Plus, I don't know if you mentioned it, Jeff, but they've got 2 games in 5 days. They've got a short week this week because they play Thursday night football. So to me, they're 1-5 right now. Why risk playing him for really, in my opinion, kind of a meaningless game for Baltimore? Because if they win, great. Maybe they can make a playoff push, but is it going to make as big of a difference if you go 1-5, or I'm sorry, if you're 1-6, or if you're 2-5? It's not a huge difference for them in that perspective. They're going to have to go on a serious run And I think they would rather make sure that Lamar is healthy before they attempt to do that. Because if he's not, why risk bringing him out there for a game you still may not win even with him out there? It just doesn't make sense to me. But just to kind of piggyback off of this, this game looks more to me, what I think the difference in this game is going to be who has the better depth, because the Ravens are beat up. They are. Roquan Smith's been out. Kyle Hamilton's been out. Lamar Jackson's been out. They've been ravaged by injury. But the Bears this week, although if you could pull up that graphic, the Bears are going to be out a lot of big-time players. Our secondary is totally depleted this week. Kyler Gordon and Tyreek Stevenson out. Cole Kmet out. Braxton Jones, Roshan Johnson, which Braxton, if we need depth, if something happens to Theo or Darnell or somebody on the offensive line, they're not going to have Braxton Jones out there. Roshan, you're a special teamer right now. Not going to have him, which I think thankfully Travis Homer is playing this week, so that will at least be good there. But Cole Kmet being out is big. Now, I think that means I don't think that's going to change any. I know everybody thinks it's probably going to, but I don't think that's going to change anything for Colston Loveland. He's probably going to continue to play the same position, play the same similar style that he's been playing. And Durham Smythe just comes in and basically takes Cole Kmet's spot. That's my guess. They might have Colston Loveland on the field a little bit more, especially with how well he blocked last week. They can trust him to go out there and block. Tyreek being out's huge, especially with Kyler Gordon not being out there. Like, we're really depleted in the secondary. Our top corner right now in the game is going to be Nashawn Wright, which is really scary to think. So very concerned with our inactives this week, but hopefully Baltimore is, with them struggling right now too with health. Maybe it could really give us an opportunity to show what kind of team we have, how deep we really are. It's going to be a test for sure. But another factor in this is, even if the Ravens get some of these guys back, say Kyle Hamilton's back this week, say Roquan's back this week, say Lamar Jackson's back this week. These guys haven't played in a while. They're going to have some rust. Matter of fact, I don't think has Roquan even played this year yet. Will this be his first game if he does play?
I think he's played, but I think he got hurt. I'm not 100% for sure.
I apologize. He has, but his numbers. Somebody put up a graphic the other day. I think we had it on one of our barroom shows. Even the comparison of Tremaine Edmonds and Roquan Smith this year, and it's Tremaine Edmonds has outplayed Roquan by a wide margin this year. Granted, he's not been healthy, but Roquan is really like slowed down. Like I think it's a speed thing. He's not had the same production over the last couple of years, and I think it's just because he's lost a step with his speed.
I don't know about all that.
I would say so. I would say he's taken a little bit of a step back over the last couple of years. He had a really great season the year he got extended, and after that, he's kind of declined a little bit, I guess, for lack of a better word. But sorry, guys, I got an eyelash in my eye. But regardless of that, it's going to be, I really think the depth is going to be what takes one of these teams over the top on Sundays. Who has the better depth on the roster? And I think that's going to be the difference in this game. I truly do. And are the Bears going to be able to continue to run the ball? Because that's a huge thing in this game as well. Baltimore's run defense has been atrocious this year. It's been very bad. And it's perfect timing for the Bears because they're just now starting to get their running game really taken off. The last 2 weeks have been excellent for our running game. So
Roquan's, as you can see on the screen, Roquan played the first 4 games of the year. He's been out since then. So this is his first game back since then. And he did say he's excited to play against his former team. So, and, I think it was Maddie in the comments mentioned, these guys, look, they want to win too. I mean, even whether or not Lamar wins or Lamar plays or not, Baltimore wants to win his football game. And they still got Derrick Henry, who's the guy can run the football. Now, the Bears have gotten a lot better defensively, stop and run the last couple of weeks, but that was an issue early in the season. And, whether or not they can stop Henry is still going to be, a key part of this football game because, especially if Lamar doesn't play, you're not so much worried about them throwing the ball over your defense, especially with your corners being hurt. I mean, even with that, I should say, even with that being the case, you're probably not super concerned about their passing game. But that being said, you still got to be able to stop the run. I feel like the fact that, if Lamar doesn't play in this game, it does bode well for the Bears because of their issues in the secondary right now. But if he does play, I mean, like I said, Baltimore is not going to just walk into this game and lay down and die, And that's the thing I think is different about this coaching staff. And you guys were asking us about Uncle Billy earlier, which is kind of funny. So long story short, Uncle Billy is Tim and I's mom. He's her brother. So I'm very, very close with our uncle, and I talk to him all the time. I see him all the time. And today I was telling him, he was saying that basically the Ravens game is one that you kind of worry about. He didn't think they'd be winning that game. And I said, normally in the past, you might say it is like a trap game. This is a game against a 1-5 team who normally he really isn't playing like a 1-5 team, especially offensively. But the fact of the matter is, this is a team that has always been good for a long time. And you got to be careful with these kind of trap games. And I do think in the past that the Bears might have walked into a trap like that and maybe gotten beat. With this coaching staff, it doesn't concern me as much because they're not going to walk into this, and look at this team any differently. They're going to take them very, very seriously. They took the Saints very, very seriously last week, who were a bad team. This is a different staff, and they're not going to allow that to be the case. I don't think they're going to let them have letdown games like that. Now, sure, there are going to be games where the Bears don't play their best and will lose. I'm not going to deny that. But I do feel like in this game, they're not going to just let them come out and not be prepared against a team that hasn't been playing well, especially a team like the Ravens, who are coached well and have always been coached well. So I know I kind of got a little bit off subject with that, but the whole point is I think that this is a game where we were talking about the staff earlier and how much of a difference they've made. This is a game where I don't think you're as concerned about the Bears not playing well and falling apart in what you might call a trap game as you would in previous years. So is there anything you want to add to that at all, Tim?
No, I tend to agree with that aspect that this would be like a trap, but Baltimore's been so good over the years, and especially if they're healthy, they are probably the most, what's the word I'm looking for? For a 1-5 team, they're the scariest 1-5 team the Bears have played in a long time.
They're dangerous.
They are very
If Lamar plays, they're incredibly dangerous for a 1-5 team.
Yes. I mean, even without that, with Derrick Henry playing, Derrick Henry is the kind of guy that can just go off. And even now, as he's aged a little bit, he's still been dominant. Last year, he had maybe his best season in his career last year, So I don't know. This is not a game that I feel comfortable. I would put it this way. If I were a betting man, I would not want to bet on this game because I honestly don't know which way it's going to go. Would I be upset if the Bears lost this game? No, because I think that these are the kind of games that I could live with a loss to Baltimore. I could. But at the same time, I look at this like this is how you prove that you're there, that you are one of those teams, that you can compete with the Baltimores, with the Buffaloes, with the Kansas Cities. This is the game. This is kind of a prove it game to me. And I was watching Bare Their Souls. I don't remember if that was last week's episode or this week's episode. They were talking about statement games. And I can't remember who had said they thought it was a statement game that when not the Saints game, Washington game was a statement game. And I tend to agree. I believe it was Danikin that said it's not so much that was a statement game. It's more if we beat Baltimore, that would be a statement game. And I 100% agree.
Aldo said it.
Okay.
Aldo said it.
Sorry, Aldo. I didn't mean to.
Give him his credit where it's due, Tim.
I want to give you your credit. Absolutely. But I do feel like if Baltimore wins, or I'm sorry, if the Bears beat Baltimore this weekend, that is a statement game. I don't care that they are 1-5. This is a perennial playoff team. This is a very good football team, a well-coached football team, and they have been since 1996 when they became a franchise. They have been a perennial playoff team and a very, very well-run organization. And if the Bears can beat Baltimore, that is a statement to me because that shows the Bears are here. They are here, and they are not a team to mess with. This is a team that is ready to start making playoff runs. This is that team, and they are ready for the challenge. No more of this. The Bears are the cellar dweller team. No more of this. The Bears are the worst run organization in football. They're an embarrassment to the NFL. They're the worst team in the NFC North. We're in progress to shaking those narratives away. We're on the way there. And if they can beat Baltimore, that narrative is gone. Sayonara. And I will be happy to see that. That is what we've been waiting for, guys. I think this is a huge game. Huge game.
J2K, this is an interesting point you make here. He says that he doesn't think the media will see it that way. They'll say we beat a bad Baltimore team.
You know what, J2K? I don't care. I
was just going to say, you know what? I'm going to use worse language. I don't give a fuck, J2K, what they say, what the media says. If they win, I could give a shit less if it's against a bad team or if it's against a good team or if it's against any other team in between. Just get the win, especially considering the fact that, these are the kind of games that we really got to win. I mean, especially if it's a team that plays without their best player, you got to go out and win a game like that. So whether they're bad or good, I don't care. Just win the game. You got to win. I don't care how they do it.
I look at it like this. And what's the quote from the Fast and the Furious? It doesn't matter if you win by an inch or if you win by a mile, winning's winning. I look at it the same way with teams. I don't care if you beat the Packers or which I'd love to beat the Packers more than anybody, but I don't care if you beat Baltimore. I don't care if you beat the New York Giants. I don't care if you beat the lowly New York Jets. Winning's winning. And if you keep winning, it doesn't matter who you played. It does not matter. It just, guess what? In the standings, it doesn't matter if you won 8 games against a terrible division in football. If you've only lost 3 games, it doesn't matter. 8 wins are 8 wins. And if you want to be a playoff team, you got to win somewhere in that 10 to 11 threshold. And it doesn't matter who you beat if you get there. It does not matter. And the other part of this is a lot of times, and we've seen it for years in sports, teams that we don't necessarily feel are that good of teams, but they have played a pretty weak schedule and they beat a lot of bad teams. A lot of times that's contagious and you build that confidence. And then you start beating the really good teams, or they'll surprise me. And plus, Jacksonville, what was that? With who's the quarterback they drafted, like the 3rd overall pick a few years back?
Who,
the
Jacksonville?
one before Trevor Lawrence, Blake Bortles.
Remember
Blake Bortles, like back. 2nd or 3rd year in the league, and they made it all the way to AFC Championship. They beat New England, right, to get there. But they beat Tom Brady, I believe. That team, people said, was not a very good football team going into the playoffs because they beat a lot of really bad teams. Guess what? They made it to the AFC Championship game and almost made it to the Super Bowl. They were that close. So it doesn't really matter. It's getting on a roll and just keep winning games. I don't care who you're beating because that confidence is going to be built as you win games. And then you start competing with the really good teams, which is why I say you win games like this. I don't care if they're 1-5 or if they were 5-1. Just win the game. It's going to go in the stat sheet and on the game. I'm sorry, on the standings the exact same way. We're 5-2 if we win this game. 5-2. It doesn't matter who you played. If you win, you're 5-2. So to me, that doesn't matter to me. I can't stand when people say, well, they beat this team that's not very good, or they beat this team without him. We beat Washington. Everybody's making an excuse that Scary Terry didn't play. Terry McLaurin does not make that big of a difference for that football team that they win and lose games just because.
Well, let me just put it this way. The only thing anybody cares about at the end of the season is your 1-loss record. They're not looking at how good the teams were that you played. Okay.
Bingo.
They're going to determine how good you were by what your record was.
Absolutely. Doesn't matter. Does not matter to me. So to answer that question easily, I mean, Jeff got a little more eccentric. I'm just going to say I don't care. I don't care. So, but yeah, again, I just think that if we win this game, that's a statement win. But again, I think it's going to depend on depth because we're both beat up. Both rosters are beat up. But I feel confident that they're going to play a good game. like I said, I don't know where I stand if they win or lose. I would not be upset if they lost, as long as they were competitive, because this is a good football team that it's kind of in a must-win now mode. But again, I think if Lamar Jackson doesn't play, you could almost chalk it up for a Bears win, because they're just not the same team without him. They're not. And that's just all there is to it. He's a 2-time MVP in this league. So, but Jeff, one thing, I know we mentioned him a little bit a minute ago, but it is a little bit of a revenge game for Roquan Smith. Is this the first? I think it's the first time he's played against Chicago since he went to Baltimore. But if he's healthy, say he plays in this game, do you think he's going to have like this monster game? Because I'm telling you right now, Roquan Smith feels like the Bears did him dirty. I think he has nothing but hard feelings for Ryan Poles, because Ryan Poles he didn't extend him, and he got rid of him as soon as he got into the building, pretty much. It was what, a couple months after he was hired, traded out the door. So what do you think, Jeff? Do you think this is a statement game for Roquan Smith? Do you think he's going to light it up if he plays? What do you think?
Okay, I think the word statement has been thrown around probably a little loosely.
Yeah, I've said statement a lot. Give us.
I don't think it's a statement game by any stretch. I think you got to win. Yeah, I think every game is important to win, but in this particular case, especially as I said before, against a team who's banged up, you got to win these kinds of games. You can't let these fall through the cracks. And as I said before, also, I don't think this coaching staff is one that's going to let that happen. They're not going to look past any teams like that. They're always going to make every team seem like they're better than they are. I'm going to give you guys a really good example of this, and this is hopefully I don't get a little too off track with this. But when I was in high school, Tim mentioned one of our coaches. Tim and I. So if you guys don't know the whole story, I went to 2 different high schools. I spent my first 3 years at a high school here in Northern Indiana, and I spent my last year at high school where Tim went for his whole 4 years in Terre Haute, Indiana. And we both had the same coach, obviously, our senior year, and that's the coach Tim was talking about earlier. But my coach at my school here in Northern Indiana for my first 3 years was very much like this coaching staff in the way that whenever we were wrestling against any kind of opponent, it didn't matter who it was. It didn't matter if they had not potential, what's the word I'm looking for? A reputation for being good or not. He always found a way to show you that there was something about that team that you were either overlooking or you weren't giving them enough credit for. And he made sure that we prepared to the best of our ability to beat those teams and be ready for everything that could come our way. And because of that, we were extremely successful. Okay. So I see that with this team also. They're not going to look past anybody. They're going to find a way to make the worst teams of the worst not appear that way. And thank you, Maddie, for your donation here. He says your $4.99 donation. We really appreciate this. He says he loves the fact that Big Booty Moody is banging kicks from anywhere, but let's score touchdowns, please. Look, I agree with that. Our red zone percentage has not been good. Although, just to ask about that as well, if what we think about that, we actually have a graphic here as well that he's got for us about that red zone percentage. And if we can put that up, although I'd like to show that to the viewers here. We're 50% right now scoring touchdowns in the red zone, and that's actually less than last year, which was 62%. Neither number is particularly good. So, look, Maddie, I totally agree with you. The fact that Moody has come in and been the steady presence that he has, especially considering the fact he had an extremely bad reputation in San Francisco because he played pretty poorly there, I think he was a second-round pick or something, or second or third-round pick. He was a day 2 pick either way, but he's a very highly drafted player, and it just didn't work out there. He's been a good it's been good seeing him come in and have success in Cairo's absence, but I wholeheartedly agree. They got to start scoring more touchdowns. You got to put more points on the board, because what's going to happen is you're going to get into some games where you need those points to win. You're not going to come down to 1-score games every single week, or you're not going to have cushions every single week to work with. So you got to start scoring more in those situations. And I think Caleb made a good point in his press conference this week as well. Imagine if they start getting this stuff together and they're actually firing on all cylinders. It could be really good. They could really start playing some high-level football here where they're beating really good teams and they're, a potential contender here. So I don't think that's going to happen this year. I mean, I think they're on their way to progressing towards that. I just don't think they have the roster yet to compete, and I don't think they have a full grasp of what they're doing yet to get to that point. But they're on their way, I feel like. So we are getting kind of low on time here, so I do want to mention real quick, guys, if you have any questions, please throw them in here. I want to make sure we get them answered for you before we get out of here. Like I said, anything you got for us, and any comments you have for us as well. I forgot to mention at the top of the show, we do have an email address, willistwintowerspodcast@gmail.com. So feel free to send us anything you guys have during the week, either questions, comments, whatever the case may be, suggestions for the show. We'd love to have them. We'd love to hear them, and we'll do our best to get them on the show for you guys. So anyways, Tim, is there anything you wanted to add to that last point before I start getting into some of these questions here?
Yeah, I'd be interested to see what that statistic was after week 4, because the first 4 weeks, the Bears were like 85% in the red zone touchdown percentage or something crazy like that. They were like top 3 in the league in that regard. But I think the last 2 weeks really watered that down, because especially last week, they were settling for a lot of field goals. What they settled for 4 field goals last week. And it was, I believe it was 4 field goals against Washington. Same thing. And those were all in the red zone, if I'm not mistaken. So I think the last 2 weeks kind of bogged that number down. So I'd be interested to see what that percentage was after week 4. But that's why I kind of think it's a little misleading right now, just because I think the last couple of weeks really brought it down. So here in a couple of weeks, we'll see where that's at. And if this continues to stay at the same, trajectory, then that's a problem. It needs to improve. But I'm not as concerned with that number right now, and I don't really want to compare it to last year just because it is early in the season. That 62% was after the season was over last year, as far as I understand. I don't think that was based on week 6 last year. So we'll see. We'll see what it is. Yes, Maddie, there were 5 field goals kicked, and they were all in the red zone, if I'm not mistaken. But so, yeah, that's 9 field goals in the red zone, or 8 or 9 field goals in the red zone the last couple of weeks. So that's 8 tries 8 tries right there that you didn't score a touchdown. So I'd be interested to see what that is. But yeah, so I don't know. I don't want to put a lot of stock into that quite yet. So, but yeah, Jeff, we can start getting into these questions. Let's see. We've got, I'll go ahead and answer this one quickly. Cliff wants to know about my handlebar, if I should grow. He wants me to grow a handlebar mustache. I did that once, not real long, but I let it get, it was actually pretty long, but at the time I had a really big beard. So I just kind of took the mustache hair and did that for a few weeks. It was awful. It's not something I'd be interested in, honestly. I mean, I trim my mustache every week whenever I shave. I keep it short. I keep it at like my razor, my trimmer 4 guard. I don't like it being real thick, real long. I think this is about the perfect length for me. So sorry, Cliff, probably not going to do the handlebar mustache.
The Raleigh fingers? Not going to do the Raleigh fingers?
Not going to do the Raleigh fingers. Number one, I'm not nearly the pitcher or player in general that Raleigh fingers was. So I'd be doing a disservice to that mustache.
That's also probably true. So I will give you credit for your humility there, Tim. I actually have to say that I'm surprised you would actually say that, but I'll give you some credit for that one. Anyhow, there's a couple more questions in here. Let's get to J2K. This is actually a comment from J2K, and it's a good one. He's mentioned it earlier in the show. We were talking about all the turnovers and how it seems like this staff is not just preaching it, but they're actually getting them to do it more so. And he says it's more than just preaching the turnovers. Dennis Allen saw something the Raiders were doing and told Byard he could get those interceptions when he saw those plays. And then he knows, and that DA knows ball. Look, I mean, they're obviously seeing something, and they're scheming things up. You see these players. It does seem that they're breaking on balls a little bit better than they have in the past. So they probably are seeing things schematically from the offense that they've been prepared for. And again, you're right. It's coaching. It's a really good coach making sure his guys know what to look for. And because of that, they're playing really well. They're getting They're getting their hands on balls. They're intercepting a ton of passes right now. Kevin Byard is playing just phenomenal football right now. It's some of the best ball in his career. Matter of fact, I had a story last week on Bear Report for 24/7 Sports. If you guys haven't had a chance to read some of my work on there, I did a story on Kevin Byard last week and how well he's playing. But look, guys, it's if they continue a pace like that, they're going to be really, really, really difficult to beat. I mean, just continue to get their hands on a ball like that. There's no way you can sustain 4 turnovers a game, but that's what Al Harris is preaching to his defensive backs, 4 a game. They want 4 turnovers a game, 4 interceptions a game. So, however they got to do it, I love to see it. Like I said, I don't think it's super sustainable, but yeah, you're right, J2K. It's a coach who knows what he's talking about. Anything you want to add at all to that, Tim?
No, I agree. I think that is a big part of it. So I don't know. I'll actually just agree with you for once instead of going down that rabbit hole.
Well, I mean, that's a good point Aldo just made too, is that he's teaching guys to get to spots.
Absolutely, he is.
To look for those opportunities, and like I said, they're probably seeing some schematically, as we know, offenses, they want receivers to get to spots, they want quarterbacks to throw to spots, and if I had to guess, DA is seeing that, like, hey, when they run this. If they're in this formation or they run this play, this is the spot they're looking to get to. We need to disrupt that, get to the ball first, and break it up. So I totally agree, Aldo. That's an excellent point. So I would love to see that myself. We have another super chat here, another donation from Starkey. Thank you, Starkey. $5 donation. He says that what he sees from the staff is that what he never saw from Nagy or Flus is they actually study and attack weaknesses on both sides of the ball in FGB. So, I agree with that as also, Starkey. We love that one. So
I think another part of it is they have a top offensive mind in the league and they have a top defensive mind in this league on the same staff, which the Bears have not had that. They have not. Let's be totally honest. When Matt Nagy was here, he was not a great offensive mind. He followed in Andy Reid's shadows. The great mind on the team was Vic Fangio's defensive mind. He was fantastic. And
go ahead.
I was just going to say, when Flus was here, I think Flus is a pretty good defensive-minded guy. I just think he wasn't a very good head coach. But his offensive coaches sucked. None of them had a clue what was going on. So that's just my opinion on it. They have not been able to put those two things together. And this staff has those two things together.
Well, what I've noticed, and Starkey, I agree with you, and I think a big thing in this that you mentioned is they actually study and attack weaknesses. I think a lot of coaches study, clearly. I mean, NFL coaching is one of the most grueling jobs in the world. These guys spend a ton of time on task preparing for opponents, and I don't think it's just certain coaches. I think most coaches do that kind of work, but the difference is the competency. These coaches know how to attack those weaknesses. They know how to get the most out of their guys. It's a matter of figuring out the best ways to do this, because there's not always going to be simple answers for everything. It's a matter of these coaches really working it out and breaking it down to how can we make this work? And then they're going out and doing it. So look, Starkey, that's a great comment. And I totally agree with everything you're saying there. So moving along, a couple more questions in here. Cliff, that was where I answered that one. J2K wants to know who has a great game against Baltimore. He's thinking Loveland has a breakout. Wouldn't surprise me, J2K, the fact he's going to be getting more snaps with Kmet being out. The one thing I would say maybe not so much is Roquan is obviously a good linebacker, and he is pretty good in coverage. And if they've got Loveland, if he's on Loveland, well, I think he'll play him pretty well. But Loveland, he's built a lot like a receiver. I think he's going to win a lot of those matchups against Roquan too. So it would not shock me if he had a big game, had a breakout game here. The Ravens defensively have been in shambles, so I think it's possible. Absolutely. And Maddie, I see you got another donation here. I'll get to that in just a second as soon as I finish answering J2K's question here. But, I think as far as a player who's going to have a good game this week, I would not be surprised if they started to get DJ a little bit more involved now. That we've been wanting to see him get the ball in more situations. And I think they're starting to a little bit. They're starting to feed him a little bit more. I do want to see them get him the ball.
They made a conscious effort last game to try to get him the ball.
I think they are doing that a little bit more. And like I said, I want to see them get him the ball in space more. And we've talked about this many times in the past. DJ is such a good player with the ball in his hands. Just get him those short passes, those bubble screens, whatever you got to do, little quick slants. Just get him the ball, let him work, and he's going to for sure make guys miss. He's going to break tackles. That's what he does. I think I've said it before on this show, I think he's got the strongest legs I've ever seen on a receiver in my life. The guy is just, it's insane the way he's able to break through some of this contact. But is there a player in your mind, Tim, that you think could have a breakout here, or could have a big game, I should say?
Of course, you stole mine from me. I was going to say DJ because I felt like this is going to, they want to get him going. And I think that, this is about the time where he'd be due to have a big game. Every year he has a few really, really big games where he just dominates. And I feel like this could be that game for him. But I also think Caleb is going to have a big game this week. I think, he's been a little down the last couple weeks. This is going to be a game where I think he's going to step up and have a big game again. So we'll see. But I think those two guys would be the two that I would choose for that. And hopefully that is the case. Did you read Maddie's super chat yet?
Not yet. Go for it.
Maddie says, I just hope he can keep the main staff for a few years at least. He's finally impressed. Absolutely. And there was I'll go ahead and answer the question that came in similar to that, which was about the coaching staff. Somebody asked, I got to find it, but I know the question was, who is the first coach that's going to be poached, more or less? Okay, it was Cliff asking about what coach would go to another team first. I would say one thing I don't think you have to worry about right now is Dennis Allen, not for a long time, because he had his second opportunity to be a head coach. And by all accounts, it was a failure as a head coach. So I think he's set as a defensive coordinator for a long time. He'll probably retire as a defensive coordinator if I had to guess. So I'm not concerned about him leaving the Bears. I think he's going to be here for the long haul. I would say two names. The number one, in my opinion, is going to be Declan Doyle, because if the Bears offense takes off like we think it's going to and should, it's just like any other situation. Sean McVay's had how many offensive coordinators go become head coaches now? I mean, it happens all the time with these guys. Whatever hot team that has a head coach that is the offensive play caller, his offensive coordinator more times than not gets a head coaching opportunity, because that everybody wants to replicate what they're doing. So in my opinion, it'd be who's Ben Johnson's protege. It's Declan Doyle. And I mean, he was with Sean Payton for years. He's a highly respected guy, a young guy who has a ton of, he's gotten a ton of praise from coaches that have been around him, including Sean Payton. Ben Johnson's been the same way about him. The guy's very detailed. He seems like a very good coach. I think he'd be the number one in my opinion. And then another guy I don't think we're talking enough about that's probably going to be in line to be a defensive coordinator pretty soon is Al Harris, who is the coach that they've talked about the most on the defensive side of the ball outside of Dennis Allen. They really like this guy in the secondary. They've said nothing but good things about Al Harris, and a former player. So the guy knows the game for sure. And he was a great player.
I was just going to say Al Harris, and I think he's a guy who could get a D coordinator job as early as next season.
Yes. With
the way that these guys are playing. I mean, their roster has been so depleted injury wise in the back end of the defense. There's so many injuries in the cornerback room that if this guy continues to have the success that they've had on the back end and limit the big plays in the pass game and whatnot and the turnovers and all that, he's going to get a job. There's no way he doesn't. So I think he's the first guy to get plucked away too. I agree with, I think there's 3 or 4 of you guys in there that have mentioned that. So I think Al Harris could be that guy. And Flex made a funny point that Al Harris might have to suit up himself this week with all the injuries they've got. I mean, he probably could still play. It wouldn't surprise me, Flex. The guy looks like he could still play. So
Antoine Randall, and I agree too. There's a reason he was promoted here. There's a reason they promoted him in order to get him here. So being the assistant head coach, I would say that he would be another one that they would consider for sure. Where to go? I want to get to all those questions because I think this one, to me, it's a very obvious answer, but I think a lot of people would almost disagree with me. What's more important? Caleb have a great game, 3 touchdowns, 400 yards, and an ugly win. Guys, a win is more important. Always. It is always more important to win football games than stats. The players here say the same thing. They've been saying it for years. I don't care if Caleb Williams throws 7 interceptions and throws for minus 40 yards. If the Bears win the game, that's all I care about. Win the game. Now, do I want to see Caleb play better? Absolutely. He's my quarterback. And he's the franchise quarterback, so he needs to play better. But a win is a win. That's what I care about. So I don't, honestly, that's not really even a question to me. I don't know what you think, Jeff.
Well, I honestly missed it. I was reading the next.
What's more important, Caleb throwing for 300 yards, 4
Oh,
touchdowns game, or
just win. Just win the game. That's always going to be. Of course, we want Caleb to improve. If I don't need him to throw 3 touchdowns and 400 yards, I mean, even if he just has a sufficient game where he doesn't play poorly, I do want to see him play better than he did last week. I mean, it would be a little disappointing if he continued to. If he played as poorly as he did it wasn't a terrible game last week, but I would just like to see him show more growth than he did and not take steps backwards. So that's my thing. It just win the game and play decently. I don't need to see a huge game from him. Next question. Moving on here. Where are we at? I just lost it.
J2K would be your next one.
J2K says he's got a wild take that he doesn't mind if Caleb has a bad game. Speaking of Caleb, but sometimes he thinks he's a little entitled, needs to get humbled to respect the game. Yeah, maybe there could be some truth to that. I think he's a very confident kid. I mean, the thing is like, in my opinion, J2K, I mean, you don't become one of the greats in the game or any sport for that matter, unless you have some of that cockiness, some of that belief in yourself, just full on confidence, Michael Jordan isn't the player he is if he doesn't have the belief in himself that he does. So I don't disagree with you. Everybody needs to have bad games to be humbled a bit. Sure. I wouldn't mind if he has a bad game either. It wouldn't kill me. I mean, I just think that it would be a little disappointing because he didn't play his best last week either. I would like to see him play a little bit better than that, but no, I'm not going to sound the alarms that the kid is, a bust or anything if he plays poorly against Baltimore. No, I do hope he plays better than he did last week. And it just, like I said, just win the game. That's all I care about, really. Just win. And what do you think, Tim?
I wouldn't say that it's entitled. I think it's kind of been proven that Caleb is not necessarily entitled. I think he is to a point because that's just this generation. If we're being
right, that's what I was going to say. There's a little bit of that in
part of this generation,
today's day and age.
But I would say it is a little bit of I don't want to say cocky. I want to say it's a confident arrogance, but not over the top arrogant. And I think that as a quarterback in this league to have success, you kind of got to have that. You got to have a little bit of a dickhead mentality, to be honest. So I agree, though. I think guys do need to be put in check sometimes. I think being humbled is a good thing at times, for sure. But if it's, every week getting humbled, then it's not really getting humbled anymore. It's just, you're just getting beat. So to me, I agree with you that it's good to be humble, but I think that it's got to be on occasion, not frequently. So, but I do like that he has that little bit of confident swagger, and I hope that carries him, honestly. Brian's saying something about my audio. Is my audio bad? I didn't know, to be honest.
When you have guests, yeah, it's a little quiet tonight than it quieter, I should say, than it normally is. It's a little muffled. But
is that better?
It's a little better, yeah.
Maybe I had my mic too far away. Sorry.
Now Aldo has, Aldo obviously has some quotes for me in the past. Now he's got one for you that you got to have a different mentality sometimes.
I guess I had to say somewhat of a cuss word in order to get my words on the screen.
That might be the best quote that ever came out of your mouth, Tim. And this is probably the best quote that ever came out of my mouth, as Aldo has on the screen, that nobody knows shit. That was back in March before Caleb was drafted last year. So anyways, we appreciate you got those quotes for us, Aldo. It's a good reminder that we say some funny stuff in the past. But anyways, it was a great show tonight, guys. We're out of time here. We appreciate all the questions and the comments you had for us. Looking forward to a big game against Baltimore this week. Quick reminder before we leave, guys, to just like the video if you haven't already. Subscribe to the channel if you're not. Like I said before, there's great content almost every single day here on the Barroom. Not just us. There's other guys with shows. There's Greg Gabriel, who has his show on Monday mornings. He's a former scout. For 9 years, he was the director of scouting with the Bears, actually. So great show there. We also have Bare Their Souls on Wednesday nights. On Tuesday nights, we have Buffon 55. So lots of great shows here. The weekend sports betting tips on Fridays also. Lots of good stuff here on the network for you guys to check out. So please do so. Please do that. You can also find us on X or Twitter, as I said before, if you haven't already. You can find me at _Jeff Willis. My partner here is at Tim Willis 24, and Aldo is at Barroom Network. And thank you again, as we mentioned before, Matt and Starkey, for your donations. Thank you so much for that. It helps us to roll and bring you guys great content all the time. So we appreciate that, guys. And we hope to see you again next week. And until then, bear down.
This is the journey that will never end. New and mightier foes will arise. New adventures will begin. Until then, we bid you farewell.
The Willis Twin Towers podcast is a Barroom production. Jeff and Tim Willis are the producers and co-hosts. Aldo Gandia is the director and executive producer. The opening theme music was produced by Tim Willis. Any copywritten material used was under the Fair Use Act for commentary, criticism, and news reporting. This show is also available in audio-only format and can be found wherever you download podcasts. Just search for Barroom Network.